Okay, Assalamu alaikum, Brother
Alaikum
Sadek.
salam.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about your work. Can I ask how you first became involved in research and why you became interested in researching British Muslims?
Sure, I mean, my interest in British Muslims really grew out of my personal study. That's been well over 10 years, 11 years actually, and that kind of developed into doing an MA in Islamic studies, and then that then developed into a PhD, which I'm studying or researching for part-time at the University of Chester.
Okay. What research are you working on at the moment?
Well, my specific focus is looking at Islamic youth activism, how British Muslims, second and third generation, got involved in different movements, groups and organisations over the last 20 years, and really what that meant in terms of how it changed their understandings of their faith, their practice of the faith, comparing that practice with their parents' generation, and then looking at the effect or the impact of Islamic movements specifically, because the way I look at it, there's been an evolution that's been caused both from changing internal dynamics as well as external factors such as international events. So an internal dynamic is the Islamic organisations, which I was talking about, specifically groups like the Young Muslims UK, Hizb ut-Tahrir, Jimas and other trends like that. I'm also looking at the traditional Islam scene and seeing how that's played out really. So bringing that from the late 80s really through the 90s up to today really, 2009, and also considering the impact events such as the Rushdie affair, First Gulf War, the Bosnian conflict, and so on, 9/11, and then 7/7. So all of these things are factors in kind of different kind of forces that have impacted on British Muslim activism, and I'm trying to really unpack that, map it, and examine it, and hopefully try to understand what's happened at the end of it.
Which methods did you use or are you using to research this current work?
Well, I use a combination of methodologies, starting off with mainly interviewing people who were at the heart of these developments and changes, so leaders of Islamic movements as well as participants, people who were sympathetic as well as people who occasionally attended those events. On top of that, I use the actual literature produced by the organisation, so the leaflets, flyers, booklets, books, magazines, and applying a discourse analysis method there, and as well as attending events of the different organisations as an observer myself, and also drawing upon existing research and analysing that and testing some of the kind of hypotheses and theories that have been put forward to explain this particular phenomena. And also I would draw upon my own personal reflections as a British Muslim person who's grown up during that period. So it's really about writing and researching about my peers and my friends and what I went through, because I did have some personal engagement with this particular topic.
What has this research found so far?
Hasn't finished yet, so it's ongoing, and I mean, so far, I suppose the greatest thing I'd like to kind of share or kind of stress is the kind of real complexity and nuance that's involved, because I'm talking about a 20-year period, and there are so many different kind of dimensions to this, and it combines insights from different disciplines, not only religious studies, but encompasses history, sociology, anthropology, political science. So I'm trying to gain the kind of insights from other researchers and writers on this, but trying to come up with something different and new. So what I'm trying to do is present an inside perspective, if you like, letting the actors or the participants of this youth activism speak for themselves, because we do at the moment have quite a growing number of reports and popular journalistic accounts, but really from an outside perspective and using methodologies and viewpoints which are not necessarily reflective of people who lived through it. So what I'm trying to say here is that, when I talk to people about, the books that have been written about them, they say, well, we don't recognise this, or this person has written about us, they never actually spoke to us, or, it's not really how it happened. So what I'm trying to do is actually get to the source of it and let the people who were there speak for themselves and give them a voice. And at the moment it's just very complicated. So so for example, in the 1990s, it's like the activist scene was a lot more clearer than it is now. Now it's very, very different, very diverse, and it's a very interesting thing. And it has I think for me the significance of this research is that it's very, very topical, long before 7/7, and the whole kind of focus on British Muslim youth and the kind of problematising of it as a group in society, minority community that is so vulnerable to extremism, because that's all we hear about nowadays: Muslims and terrorism, extremism, radicalisation. That's one element of it, but it has a larger, deeper context, and that's what I'm trying to understand and trying to unpack. And I think that hopefully that should have some kind of benefit. I hope if it holds a mirror up to the community, if the activists recognise the image I'm trying to convey through this mirror, if lessons can be drawn, and if it can record this period of recent history in the Muslim community, I think that would be useful.
Thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.